Hello, and welcome to Full Tuck, the Wingspan Podcast with me, Aidan Butler.
And me, Adam Paling. And this is the podcast where we like to talk all things Wingspan. It's a game that we've loved now probably for 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
First got into it during lockdown, and it's taken over a large part of ours and our friends' lives ever since.
Yep.
And we thought, what would be a better thing to do than actually get more Wingspan in your lives than talk about it.
So, we've got a lot of features coming at you. We'll have guest interviews with some of the biggest names in the Wingspan world. We're going to have features which dissect some of the minutiae of the Wingspan game and look at some of the more interesting aspects of how we play Wingspan. And we'd love to know some of your thoughts along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things we'd really like to get going forward is some audience participation, so to speak, really try and get you thinking about your game as well as our game. And so each week we're going to end the podcast with a hand of the week, where we will then offer you the opportunity to contact us with how you would play an opening hand. And then the following week, me and Aidan will talk through what our strategy is and maybe talk through any notable ones that we've been sent in. So with that in mind, should we talk about what we're going to cover today, Aidan?
Coming up on today's Full Tuck, we're going to start out with our inaugural starting hand review, which we'll introduce in a moment. We'll move on to our main discussion segment this week. This week's titled Predator Powers, Are They Worth It? And I am sure a lot of you will have some thoughts on that. And we'll round off with our deep dive into some of the statistics around our playing games of Wingspan, some of the things that we found interesting, and hopefully you will too. And then we'll leave you with a teaser starting hand review to take us into next episode.
Great. Shall we get on with this starting hand review then? We're going to move right on to our first section. And this is what actually is going to be one of our recurring features, where we, at the end of each week, we offer you a starting hand review and ask how you would play the game. But because this is our pilot episode, we're going to actually do this section to show you how it works this time around. So we've decided to run a 3-player game, and we've got an opening hand along with bonus cards and obviously end of round goals. And we're going to talk you through that now, and then we're going to talk about how we would approach this.
So to start with, we'll go through what the hand is. We'll talk, or we'll briefly introduce the bonus cards, and then we'll go through in a little bit more detail about what each card is, where it might live, the egg capacity, type of nest, and the powers. And that should hopefully give you some food for thought about what you might do. And we'll talk through what we might do, given the scenario in an actual game.
So what are the birds that we've started with this game, Aidan?
So the birds we've been dealt are, we've got Gould's Finch, the Cedar Waxwing, the Red-Winged Blackbird, and the Canada Goose. And then finally, we've got the Buyer Weaver.
Interesting. Okay, so I can already see some combos there. And what bonus cards have we got?
So we've got the Breeding Manager. For those not in the know, this is birds with at least 4 eggs laid on them, and you get 1 point per bird. And then secondly, we've got the Prairie Manager. So this is birds that can only live in the grasslands. 2 to 3 birds, you get 3 points, and 4+ birds, you get 8 points.
Okay, so just working through each of the powers now. The first, Gould's Finch. This is a bird that can live anywhere, only costs 1 wheat. And this is a game end power. And the game end power is play a bird, pay its normal food and egg cost. And then you can use that power of that bird if it has its own when played or end game power. Next is the Cedar Waxwing. So 2 cherries, can live in the trees or the fire. Now that's something you'll recognise that we tend to slip into our shorthand here. The grassland we call the fire. So apologies for that going forward. If you don't like it, you can leave. And so the Cedar Waxwing costs 2 cherries. Tuck a card from your hand behind this bird, and if you do, you gain a cherry from the supply. The third bird we've got is the Red-Winged Blackbird. Now this is a tuck a bird from your hand behind this bird. If you do, you lay 1 egg on this bird. We call it a tuck to lay bird. Now this is one of the ones that can live in the fire or the water, only cost 1 wheat. Last 2 birds, the Canada Goose. It's one of the classic birds. This is discard 1 wheat, tuck 2 cards from the deck behind this bird. Again, can live in the fire and the wet, and it's got 2 wheats. And then lastly, which is probably it's our no-brainer here, is the Buyer Weaver. So for those that don't know, the Buyer Weaver also can live in the fire and the wet. So there's just maybe a quick suggestion for how our game's going to go. It costs a Witchetty Grub and 2 wheats, but you can tuck up to 3 cards from your hand behind this bird, which if you do, you lay 1 egg on this bird. So those are the 5 birds, and the bonus cards were Breeding Manager, which is birds with at least 4 eggs laid on them, and then Prairie Manager, which is birds that can only live in the fire. And just before we talk about tactics, what were the end of round goals there, Aidan?
Oh, yeah,
Obviously,
sure.
that will influence what we do.
So round one, we've got white and no powers. Round two is cards remaining in your hand at the end of the round. Round three is birds worth less than or equal to 3 bird points. And then finally for round four, we've got food cost of played birds. So certainly some food for thought and definitely changes the dynamic of your starting hand, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I would agree. So when you get this hand, what are you probably thinking, Aidan? I mean, I know very well how you play, but our
Mm.
listeners don't, and I think I could probably guess what birds you go for here. But what are you thinking overall?
So my thoughts looking at this hand are there are 3 birds here. In fact, there are 4 birds here that have flock powers. So flock powers are a symbol where you've got a bird symbol with some cards tucked behind it. And this is personally one of my favorite powers in the game. I think it can be very powerful and it can be created into a chain, which is one of the most powerful things you can do in Wingspan. So my immediate thoughts are we've got 4 birds here with those flock powers. Now that's fantastic. However, 3 of those 4 flock powers require you to tuck a bird, at least one bird, from your hand behind the bird in order to use its power. Quite quickly, you're going to run out of cards if you use more
Yeah.
than a couple of these
Yeah.
bird cards.
It's interesting when I see a hand like this where there's quite clearly combos here, and there's quite clearly a chain. I'm immediately thinking less about the end of round goals and less about the bonus cards because I know that I can work a chain quite well here.
Yeah,
So
sure.
actually, given my bonus cards are birds with at least 4 eggs laid on them, now none of these birds can actually hold 4 eggs on them, so that's immediately probably going to go in the bin here.
Yeah.
And birds that can only live in the fire, again, none of my birds open with a fire, so actually that works quite well. We don't have a bonus card that really works for us. And I'm also thinking less about the end of round goals. And that first end of round goal is white and no powers. The second one, birds in hand, probably also not going to be relevant for you.
Yeah, sure. So, I couldn't agree more. And I think, yeah, it's obviously always good to look at the end of round goals, to look at your bonus cards. Personally, looking at those bonus cards, objectively for me, the Prairie Manager, birds that can only live in the fire, is one of the better bonus cards.
Interesting. Yeah.
There are 3 similar bonus cards, which are birds that can only live in the forest, the fire, or the wetlands. Interestingly, the forest and the wetlands bonus card, you need 5 birds to achieve the top score, whereas with the fire one, you only need 4 birds. So it always sticks out in my mind as one of the better bonus cards. But going back to the birds, so I think we're likely to have a similar point of view here, Adam. But
I don't know actually.
Oh,
I'd be
wow.
really interested. Yeah,
Okay.
so go on, you go first.
Right,
What
okay.
you
So
go for,
my approach to this game would be, I think the Weaver is one of the most powerful birds in the game. This is a bird that allows you to tuck up to 3 cards from hand and lay an egg on that bird. Not only are you getting eggs if you play it in the wetlands, but it's a lot of points in one spin, and it can be the making of a very good chain.
Yeah.
So that's an absolute banker for me.
Yeah.
That's going in my starting hand without a doubt.
Yeah.
And you agree?
Well, yeah, no,
Yeah,
so
I'll
go on,
carry
tell
on.
me what you're going to do, and then I'll say what
Carry
I'll
on.
do.
The second bird I would keep is Gould's Finch. So for me, a bird that allows you to play another bird at the end of the game is essentially a free go. It can live anywhere. It's got a low cost of only having 1 wheat, and it's 3 bird points. It can be used to get you up onto the second space of the chain for the forest and the fire, and that can be a really powerful, flexible way of starting the game. So I'd keep the Weaver, I'd keep Gould's Finch, and those are the only birds I'd keep. I'd keep that along with
Really?
grub, a wheat. I'd keep a witchetty grub, a wheat, and a cherry. And I would keep the Prairie Manager bonus
I
card.
really can't believe that. So you're not going to keep the red-winged blackbird. So that's the bird where you tuck a card from your hand behind this bird, and if you do, you lay 1 egg. You're not keeping that.
Yeah, so I'll tell you my justification.
Wow.
My justification is the Weaver is 3 cards from your hand to lay 1 egg on this bird.
Yeah.
If you have the red-winged blackbird in the same chain, you need to have 4 disposable cards in the same chain.
Yeah.
And if they're one after the other, you only pick up 2. So the chances of you being able to use both their powers and keep potentially birds that you want to play that you pick up is next to 0.
So presumably your opening play is either play the Weaver or probably more likely play the Gould's Finch to get food, play the Gould's Finch in the trees, get some food, so you play the Weaver and then you're away, aren't you?
Depending on what the face-up tray is,
so that's
the tray.
I'm shocked. So for the listener, Aidan absolutely loves building a water chain, and I'm convinced that that's what he would do today. But he also absolutely loves a tuck to lay power, and the fact that there are 2 there, I just think he'd take them both. So if this was me, it's really interesting. I keep 3 birds. I definitely keep the Bioweaver. You have no choice. That's a game winner there. I would also be keeping the Cedar Waxwing and the Red-Winged Blackbird. Okay, and so the Cedar Waxwing is also a tuck from your hand, but you gain a cherry, and the Red-Winged Blackbird, as you mentioned, is tuck from your hand, lay 1 egg. Now, I recognise here that you're actually tucking a lot of cards, but the benefit of each of these birds is not that you tuck the bird, it's that you gain the bonus afterwards. And so if I was to keep the Cedar Waxwing, Red-Winged Blackbird, Bioweaver, I play the Cedar Waxwing first. I play the Red-Winged Blackbird first, go in the water, pick up 2 cards, which are just going to be tuck fodder. Then I play the Cedar Waxwing in the trees. Then I get food. I tuck one of those 2 under it. So I've already gained a free cherry. I've already gained an egg. And then I can immediately play, depending on the food in the bird feeder, the Bioweaver. And then in my first 4 goes, I've got 5 goes, sorry. I've got a 2 egg laying water chain that I immediately start spinning. I recognise my issue there is card draw.
The other issue is actually you wouldn't have enough food to do that.
Would I not?
So if you're keeping 3 cards, you get a nectar and 2 foods.
Yeah.
You're using all 3 of those foods to play the Cedar Waxwing and the Red-Winged Blackbird.
Oh, I wouldn't.
And then you'd only gained 3 foods, and one of those would be a cherry, which isn't enough to play.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I'd probably come unstuck then, and the 4th go and have a quick paddy as I realised that.
See, I think this is highlighting my issue with this hand is that you've got too many birds that rely on you to have expendable birds to tuck from your hand.
And so do you think as well, we're both effectively ignoring the end of round goals at the moment?
It does seem that
we've got the power to build a chain. And yeah, okay, interesting. So that's how we would both approach this. And what we're going to do at the end of this episode is give you another starting hand. Hopefully you contact us to see how you would start, but you can see how we would start the game after that. Okay, more in a minute.
So welcome back to Full Tuck, the Wingspan Podcast. Now we're going to talk about our main discussion point for the week, and this week's topic is predator powers. Are they worth it?
Yeah, so I know you've been quite keen to talk about this one, Aidan. I think we have maybe differing views on predator powers, maybe not. So what do you want to bring to the table?
So we'll start with a brief explainer on what a predator power is. So predator powers make up a proportion of the birds in the game. They generally have brown powers, but can sometimes have other types of powers as well. They have a skull and crossbones symbol and are generally types of birds that you might find predating on other birds naturally. The way they work is that you will usually take some kind of action that may or may not succeed, and that results in you scoring some kind of points or occasionally gaining resources through that bird's power. They can live in a range of habitats, they have a range of food costs, and they have a range of associated bird points, making them really quite a flexible type of bird power. And interestingly, they bring quite a large element of luck into the game, which is something I think we both definitely enjoy. So Adam, I'll put this to you. If you find a predator power facing you in the face-up tray in round 1 of a 4-player game of Wingspan, will you pick it up?
Well, I suppose that comes down to the starting hand I've got, which we've already covered, haven't we? But more often than not, no. I suppose this comes down to the crux of, is Wingspan a game about risk, or is it about numbers? And I'm sure you and maybe other fans who are very, very keen have seen sort of some fans have produced those big sort of tables of what the win percentage of every bird is. For example, you talk about maybe the little penguin, the chance of that getting 3 out of the 5, sort of 3 fish is 1 in 200 or something. And I suppose it comes down to whether this is a risk game or not. And for me, I don't really see it as a risk game, and so I probably tend to avoid those birds more often than not. Although I know my mum loves a predator power herself.
Yeah, I know. I couldn't agree more. I think it's definitely something I've seen that's polarized a lot of players I've played with. Something I have felt about these powers is that they've changed a lot with new expansions that have come into the game. I've really enjoyed, in particular, a lot of the predator powers that have come in with the Asia expansion. I think they add a lot more variety. And notably, I think that that element of risk that you mentioned, Adam, I think they really changed the game in terms of that risk.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, definitely. I mean, didn't they sell that expansion as a sort of a push your luck expansion? I can't
Yeah.
remember if they did.
Yeah, I remember
Um,
that in the initial advertising for the game, definitely.
I suppose and the nice thing is it doesn't really dilute the game too much because now you've got what 300, 400 birds-ish roughly. And if that expansion adds 90 new birds, if only 30 of them are really push your luck birds, then it doesn't dilute the game. But I agree, I suppose you've got some really strong push your luck predator powers in this expansion, don't you? So just to name a couple off the top of my head. You're going to test me here now, aren't you?
So one in particular, or a couple in particular that I really love are the purple heron, which is a bird that lives in the water. You roll 2 dice, and if you get either a witchetty grub or a fish on either of those dice, then you can cash that on your bird, and you can do that up to 3 times to get 3 in a row.
Okay, do you take that to 3 times every time though? So this is an interesting point. So the same is like the little forest owlets that live in the
Yeah.
trees. You just do the same, but it's a rat or a witch tea. Okay,
Mm.
so three of your sorry, so you can actually on any one dice, half of the die of the faces would score you for that bird, yeah?
Yeah.
Because there's one which is a witch grub or a worm, whatever that we call it witch grubs for those that don't
Yeah.
call it that. A rat, and there's also we call it a splitch grub, and that's the worm/wheat die face. So half of your die faces actually qualify for those two birds.
Yeah.
So how often, I mean, you've just said you like pushing your luck in these scenarios.
Yeah.
How often do you take it to the whole way?
Personally, 3 every time.
Never. Come on.
I do.
I've never seen you take it to 3.
I do.
I
do.
That is a
I think
blatant
for me-
lie.
For those listeners, I have a lot of confidence and I never wimp out on 2.
Yeah, fine. I mean, I think I always take it to 3 because
Yeah.
I think your chances of, I mean, your chances of getting that last one is still half 50-50, and I think the benefit in that is huge, isn't it? And I've had games where I've sort of got 20, 25 foods just on a single bird. Game changer that is. It's a game winner in those scenarios.
Absolutely. And I think also how many bird powers in the game will get you 3 points in one spin without you having to give anything up.
Yeah.
You'll have a lot of other tuck birds, Rosy Starling, the main duck, that allow you to tuck up to 3 cards from your hand.
Yeah.
No questions asked, but you have to have those 3 cards to tuck.
Let me put this to you then. I'm racking my brain here. Most of the predator power birds are higher feather points. They're higher value. So when you play them, inherently you've already gained the points. So even if the luck aspect isn't there, it's one of these birds that, yeah, you've already committed yourself to say 6 points, 8 points in the golden eagle, haven't you?
Yeah.
So actually, is it as bad as you say it is if you're already getting the feather points from the bird?
That's true. That's true. And I think those feather points are definitely not to be sniffed at. They go a long way in terms of your overall point scoring, sometimes scoring half your points in the game. So definitely something to be bore in mind.
Yeah, so for you actually, your bird, so the average overall bird total this is from my stats, which has about 600 games on it. The average percentage of points the bang on average score is 102 from all of the games that we've ever played, and the majority of them have Oceania. So it's nicely, roughly 100%, isn't it? And the average bird total is it's about 45, and so that makes the average percent about 44%. So it's almost half of your points in every game are coming from birds. I mean, I definitely feel that one of my strategies is always to preferentially go for the bigger point birds.
Yeah.
It's because I just think so often you're only going to activate that bird 2 or 3 times unless you've got a good chain.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's worth it.
I do see what you're saying, and I think that's contrasting with some of the earlier predator powers of the game where you might see, for example, I feel a bit bad calling this bird out, but Cooper's hawk, you've got a predator power which allows you to tuck from the deck if that bird's wingspan is less than 75 centimeters. Now for me, this is a maybe 50-50 chance that you're going to get to tuck that bird for a single point. You compare that to other similar original game birds, which are tuck to draw powers or tuck to lay powers. You've got guaranteed points there.
Yeah.
And so I just don't see those kinds of powers as generally worth playing.
Interesting. Right. Well, let us know. Contact in via the usual contact methods. You'll see them in the show notes at the end, and let us know if you've got any strong opinions either way.
And please let us know. any noteworthy games you might have played in that have been dominated by predator powers, or where you've had any kind of famous strong performances from any particular predator powers. We'd love to hear from that.
And also let us know if your players lie about whether they take the forest owls to three to three rolls every time or not. Okay, so welcome back to Full Tuck, the Wingspan podcast. And what I wanted to get you on, Aidan, was some of the stats that I've been keeping. So I'm a bit of a nerd. I think that's plain to see and probably to hear as well.
Yeah, no doubt. You should see this guy.
And over time, I've just collected more and more data about Wingspan. We'll get into some of my theories and thoughts about that in future episodes. But for now, I wanted to just get you on basically some basic statistics, okay? And so I'm sure many of you use the WingScore app, and shout out to the producers for being brilliant in terms of making a great app, but also whenever I've had requests for the app, they've responded within a few days.
Yeah, absolute legends.
So the app, for those that don't have it, is basically just a brilliant repository of all your games. And so I've currently got 665 games on there, and mostly with Oceania. And you get a really good understanding of average points, and styles of play, because you can see per player overall. So if I put to you then, Aidan, that so what I've got here is I've got your scores and my scores compared to the average scores. And what I've done is, because obviously we all average different amounts, I've just done it as a percentage. Okay. So for example, the average, so the average of all the games ever, there is, so if you average all the scores of all the games ever, people score 11.7% of their points from end of round goals. Okay?
Yes, got it.
People score 14.5% of their points from tucked cards. Okay, so if you think about how you play the game, do you think there's any ways that you would differ from the average player?
Okay, yeah. So I think something that fellow wingspanners would say about me is I have a tendency to like to tuck cards. That definitely tends to be a strategy of mine. So I would hesitate to guess that I would have maybe stronger tuck points percentage than the average player.
Yeah.
I think I tend to ignore end of round goals, maybe to my detriment. So I would suggest I probably have relatively low end of round goal percentage, and I would suggest I maybe have a higher nectar point percentage than the average player, but very happy to be surprised.
Yeah, it's interesting. I suppose these stats do include you in it as well, so any differences will be less marked. But
yes,
really interestingly, so your tuck percentage is pretty much exactly the same as the average player. Okay, so the average player,
oh wow,
scores 14.5% of their points. You score 14.9% of your points. So
there
something that when I saw, and this is the thing with the stats when they come out, you don't really believe them to begin, because I'm absolutely convinced that's just what you do. But you're right about the end of round goal. So the pair of us are significantly lower on our end of round goal percentage compared to the average player. So the average player, 11.7% of their points are from end of round goals. You are 9.1%. Okay.
Wow, right.
And I'm 9.5%. So anything more than 2%, I would say, in this is significant, because actually it's quite, the game's not as variable as we like to think it is.
Yeah,
you're obviously not going to have a game where you score 90% of your points from eggs, are you? Because you're limited. And so any variation in 2 points, I would say, is it's really quite,
I would agree,
is really quite variable. I suppose that's reflected in your stats overall, though, and so your score is much higher than the average person's score as well. But yeah, your net, pretty much everything's about the same. So apart from end of rounds being significantly less, there's no other real change. Why do you think you ignore end of round goals?
Yeah, that's a good discussion point. So personally, I feel that they can become too easily a distraction from stronger mechanics in the game.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's a fixed number of points for each round, and quite often you can spend time focusing on working towards an end of round goal and get sniped by an opposition player, and suddenly it's not very many points that you're getting. If you're coming second or third in a say 4 or 5 player game of Wingspan, if you're coming second or third in an end of round goal, it's 3, maybe 4 points. And it's not a lot of points.
It's not like games like Terraforming Mars where you share that first place.
No.
You splitting that place is actually the worst outcome for you and the best outcome for the people who didn't try and participate in that end of round goal.
Yeah.
So if you're someone that's not going for any end of round goals, actually what you want all other players to tie for all of the end of round goals and you just don't compete because it's the least points for them. I suppose what I would say though is this really varies depending on the number of players that you play with. And I'd say we play with everyone from 2 up to 7. Once or twice we've even done 8, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. Well,
and that was
chaos.
Chaos, never ending. But in a 2-player game, I think that's what wins you the game, actually. And so the app doesn't have it, but it would be interesting to see what your stats are at different player numbers. Because I think in a 2-player game, to win the game Wingspan, all you have to do is beat your opponent in the end of round goals.
Yeah, sure. No, totally. And I think I saw quite an interesting take on 2-player end of round goals from potentially someone online who had suggested that actually the difference between the first and second place number of points for each end of round goal is 3. The difference is 3 each time.
Yeah.
And therefore winning the first round end of round goal or winning the last round end of round goal is meaningless in a 2-player game.
Agreed.
Which is interesting because in a 4 or 5-player game, actually, 4th round end of round goal has a lot more meaning.
Yeah,
so it gives you a totally different take.
It depends if you know you've got a mechanic or an engine going or a chain going. If you know you've got an engine going, my target is always just to win 1 or draw 2, because then I know the other person won't pull away from me. You have to compete in all of them though as well in the 2-player, because if you don't compete, then there's obviously that huge points difference. Let's say it's eggs on bowl nests, and then it's the last round, and you don't have any. Compared to you having 1, that's the difference between 0 points and 4 points. And so you need to be in it, but it just goes to show. Whereas if it's in a 5-player game, a 4-player game, I'm not interested at all. I'm basically ignoring it because I know that the game in then is in your chain, isn't it? And the big point birds.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a really interesting part of the game, and I also think it's almost certainly something where we would have fellow players who would have completely different opinions to us, and people who might target end of round goals almost specifically with the way in which they take the game.
Yeah, interesting. Maybe something for future episodes then with
more of a deep dive. Couldn't agree more. And again, we would love to hear from you if anyone feels strongly that we are stupid to ignore them in the way that we do. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to be told that we're terrible Wingspan players and ways to improve. So please do get
if you think we're stupid for other reasons, we don't have time to read through all of the letters. And so okay, so I guess with that wrapped up, shall we move on to our final episode? We'll set up your starting hand for next week.
Yeah.
And so have you got that ready there?
Let's get into it.
Yeah. So just a quick reminder for people, what we're going to be doing here is we're going to simulate a game, 4-player game, and we are going to give you the starting hand, including bonus cards and end of round goals for a 4-player game, sometimes 3-player game, I imagine. Should we do 3-player this time? I suppose it doesn't really matter.
Well, I think we can vary it each week, but I agree, 3-player game this time. It may make some kind of difference to what you choose. So let's go with a 3-player game this time. We can switch it up.
Maybe another time I'd like to talk to you about how hard the game is at different player numbers. But yeah, so how about let's get that loaded up and then we can have a chat in a minute. Right, so our first ever genuine starting hand review, we span the random number generator of the Wingspan app and we've got our 5 birds. And just a reminder for you guys that there is going to be a photo and also a list of all the birds, the bonus points and the birds in the tray, bonus cards, birds in the tray and end of round goals for you to peruse in your own time and let us know what you think.
And as a reminder, this is a 3-player game of Wingspan. And here come the birds. So first off, we've got the common sandpiper. This is a when activated brown power. Draw 1 card for each bird in your wetlands with an egg on it. Keep 1 and discard the rest. We've got the Sri Lanka blue magpie, which is a round end power. You may cache 1 food from your supply on each of your other birds. The grey lag goose, which is also a round end power. This bird counts double towards the end of round goal if it qualifies for the goal. The desert finch, which is a when played, lay 1 egg on this bird for each other bird in your grasslands or fire. And the wrybill, which is a when played power. Look through all the discarded bonus cards, keep 1 of them.
And then bonus cards, we've got the Grasslands Ranger and the Forester. So Grasslands Ranger is consecutive birds in your fire with ascending or descending scores. Ranger is birds that can only live in the forests. And then in the tray, we are going third, so it's probably not relevant this game, is the Green Heron, the Desert Wheat Eater, and the Yellow-bellied Sapsucker. So how about actually, let's say we go first, shall we? Do you think that's fair enough
Yeah,
for
yeah,
this?
yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that's
Otherwise,
probably
going
more
third, there's no
interesting.
point reading them out, is
True.
there?
Couldn't agree more.
So Green Heron, trade one food for any other food from the supply. Desert Wheatear, for each bird in your fire with an egg on it, roll any one dice. Choose one type of food you rolled and gain one of that food from the supply. And then Yellow-bellied Sapsucker, gain one which two from the supply.
And then we've got end of round goals. So round 1 is food cost of play birds. Round 2 is Canada nests or tree nests, birds with eggs on them. Round 3 is brown powers in your aviary, and round 4 is eggs in your wetlands.
Great. So photos and lists of that will be in the show notes that go with this episode. Let us know what you think, and hopefully we'll see you next time.
Happy wingspanning. See you next time. Thanks very much, everyone.